Once again, good afternoon, Council. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me, Councillor Verbeek? Everybody can hear me? Just to give you an update before we start the meeting on County Road 50. I talked to Dan Newman and he's hopeful that County Road 50 will be open. You're going to prep it on Wednesday and finish it. He's hoping it'll be finished Thursday or Friday, open for the long weekend. Just let council know. Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Is there any conflict of interest amongst council members here tonight? Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the published agenda tonight. So could I have a mover, please? Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bondi. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, under reports from administration, under 4.1, we have 3 applications this evening. The first item is a site-specific zoning amendment at 0 County Road 50 East and the Kiwanis Club of Windsor. But first, Mr. Mayor, I believe we're going to our Director of Development Services, Lori Chadwick, and then over to Rita Jabor, our Manager of Planning Services. And then there's 2 delegations with that first application, Mr. Ed Hooker and Mr. Dan Inverity.
Go ahead, Lori, if you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and good evening to council and those of us that are joining us through Zoom, as well as through YouTube. I wanted to take a minute to introduce the purpose of tonight's meeting and how it relates to development in the town of Essex. It's certainly a beautiful thing to witness the synergies within not only our department of development services, but also across the organization with our various colleagues that also play a role in shaping our community's future. We've applied our economic development lenses, we've applied our rural planning lenses, we've considered infrastructure considerations, and before we get to construction on any of these projects, we have a duty to hear from the public on changes to zoning designations on certain properties. So we're going to hear from our Manager of Planning Services, Ms. Rita Jabor, who will be presenting 3 proposed zoning bylaw amendments tonight to you to satisfy the public meeting requirement under the Planning Act for 3 separate Planning Act applications. So therefore, a decision should not be made on any of these applications tonight. We're here to hear input from the public and you as a council representing the community. So I'm here to support Rita and of course to assist in answering any of your questions that you may have. But from here on out, I'm going to give the floor to Rita. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Lori. I think this is going to go to Shelley, isn't it? Or going to Rita. Okay, go ahead.
So through your chair, yes, good evening to everyone, council, members of the public, and those watching in the comfort of their home. We have 3 zoning bylaw amendment applications to go through today, so sit tight. It's going to be an exciting night. Shelley's here. She's helping me with the Zoom presentation. So I'm going to turn my camera off while I get Shelley to share her screen. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Shelley. Oh, just disappeared.
Sorry, I think I had the wrong one. Sorry about that. I've got them all queued up separately. Is this the correct one? Nope. My goodness, I'm not doing so well today. Here it is. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Shelley. So the first zoning amendment application we have tonight concerns a property along County Road 50 East, and we'll get to the actual geographic location in just a bit. We're going to flip over to the next slide. So just before I go into some detail about the purpose of this meeting, simply jumping off from Ms. Chadwick's comments, yes, we're not here to make any decisions tonight. Tonight, we're here to hear from the public. We're here to hear my presentation on the merits and any concerns that were raised as part of that public consultation process. So the main theme of tonight is really just listening to the proposal, listening to the public, and administration gaining feedback from council and from the public on the proposed zoning amendment. Next slide, please. So the Subject lands are denoted by the red star, and you'll see that they're located along County Road 50, so in Ward 3. The property itself is about 0.8 hectares, which is about 2 acres of residential lands. It's vacant lands. It's actually on the south side of County Road 50 East. The official plan designation is Lakeshore Residential, and the existing zoning is a low density zoning, the Residential District 1.1, which permits single detached dwellings and any use accessory to that dwelling. Next slide, please. So this is more of a aerial view of the actual property itself. So like I stated earlier, it is vacant land. It's just off of County Road 50 East, and it's located on the west side of Breezeway Drive. The property is currently being used as an accessory to the Kiwanis Camp, which is located just to the west of the subject site. It's also within 120 meters of a natural heritage feature, and to be specific, it's a woodlot. And I have an arrow showing the approximate location on the subject property. So it's just to the southern end of this property. This is going to be a little bit important when we discuss development and site alteration on this property and some of the comments that have come in. Next slide, please. So in terms of the neighborhood profile, anytime we look at a zoning amendment, we want to look at the neighborhood as well. I know it's site specific to one site, but the neighborhood really does impact the types of uses. And in terms of measuring any impacts, we do look at the neighborhood as well. So just south of County Road 50 is entirely a residential district. Again, the subject property is just east of the Kiwanis Camp and the Erie Shores Campground, which is located on the map with a red star. On the Erie Shores Campground, you'll see brown and green colors. So what this denotes is that the brown is a wetland. It's a provincially significant wetland. That's its official zoning. And the green is an area of natural environment. So the property itself is not actually within 120 meters of the wetland or the area of natural environment. And like I stated, this is very important whenever we evaluate an application for a zoning bylaw amendment, because there might be some development, some site alteration as a result of that amendment. And the provincial policy and our own official plan stipulates that anything within 120 meters, any type of development or site alteration needs to be properly assessed in order to determine what that impact is, if any, on that area of natural environment or that wetland or that natural heritage / woodlot. Also, north of County Road 50, it's simply a general agricultural district. Next slide, please. In terms of infrastructure, so I have a yellow star here that shows where the subject property is. The subject property is along Breezeway Drive. The road itself, Breezeway, is gravel. It's owned, but it's not assumed by the town of Essex. So the town of Essex owns it, but in terms of assuming it, we just maintain the minimum, which is gravel. It hasn't been constructed to town standards. It was constructed a long time ago, so we maintain that standard for now. That's what owned but not assumed means. There is a municipally owned and operated water supply, and that's depicted in blue, and that runs along Breezeway Drive, and it serves those properties along Breezeway, as well as it will have capacity to service any additional development on this vacant parcel. There is no municipal sanitary sewer on the east side of County Road 50, as many council members and members of the public and administration already know. So there has to be provisions for private on-site septic systems. Next slide, please. So now to the meat and potatoes. The applicants are proposing a zoning change to permit a reduction in the minimum lot area. And I've highlighted and underlined minimum lot area here because I will provide a definition to council about what that means in just a bit. So currently, the zoning states that the minimum lot area for this parcel is 4,000 square meters, which is about 43,000 square feet. They want to drop that down to 1,850 square meters, which is approximately 20,000 square feet, to permit residential infilling for 4 residential lots. These lots are identified as lots 40 to 52 on Register Plan 1390. And in just a moment, I will get to that plan itself and what that means. But on this slide, you'll see what the proposed lotting plan is for this parcel. Again, these parcels outlined in red. This is what the 20,000 square feet, 1,850 square meter lot would look like. Next slide, please. So there's always a reason for a zoning change. In this case, back in 2014, the applicants came to council with a zoning bylaw amendment to change the zoning designation of the subject property and the neighboring Kiwanis Camp property from green district to residential district. So before 2014, and you'll see the affected properties as A, B, and C. The property that we're speaking to tonight is denoted as C, and A and B is in reference to the Kiwanis Camp. Before 2014, the official zoning for those parcels was green district, but the underlying official plan designation for all 3 parcels was residential. So the applicants applied to change that zoning to residential to match the official plan designation in 2014, and were successful in getting that zoning change. At the time, there were really only 3 dwellings proposed, 1 on each of those parcels. So 1 on A, 1 on B, and 1 on C. Noting that there was potential for more than 3 building lots, because this actually all 3 of these parcels are on a registered plan, council of the time approved the zoning change, but with a supplementary regulation that would restrict the building lot to a minimum lot area of 4,000 square meters in order to qualify as minor infilling, and in order to keep the number of lots down from no more than 6. So here we are today. Next slide, please. So this is Register Plan 1390. This is a registered plan of subdivision that we still recognize today. It was actually registered in 1929. That was the year it was approved. And you'll see the 13 lots that actually comprise the parcel that we're referring to today. Now, just remember, the applicants aren't here to create 13 lots, but there is 13 lots on this subject parcel that could possibly be transferred and sold to individual landowners. The applicants want to assemble these lots to create 4. And again, because of that 4,000 square meter regulation, they cannot. So we're looking to reduce it. So we end up with a lotting plan that's exactly as outlined on this slide. Next slide, please. So as promised, I included a definition for everyone's reference tonight on lot area. Lot area, and this is completely from our zoning bylaw, means the total land area as measured along a horizontal plane within the lot line, so your front line, your rear lot line, your side lot line of a lot, but does not include any part of a lot permanently covered with water. Next slide, please. So here are our current regulations for residential district 1.1, which is the zoning affecting this property and the zoning affecting the neighboring properties. You'll see that I have highlighted what the minimum lot area is for these properties that are not serviced by a sanitary sewer. And you'll note that it's actually 1,850 square meters. So if this was a lot today that someone owned and that didn't have the supplementary regulation, they could build a single detached dwelling on the lot, so long as it's a minimum of 20,000 square feet where there is no provisions for municipal sanitary. The building code actually prescribes an even lesser lot area because septic systems have come such a long way in terms of technology. There's septic systems now that can be accommodated on lots as low as 10,000 square feet. But for today's purpose, we're looking for a reduction to 20,000, which is our minimum standard. Next slide, please. So anytime we evaluate a zoning bylaw amendment, we need to look at the policy framework. We need to ensure that what's being proposed is permitted under our official plan. If it's not, then it's a different type of planning instrument that we have to ask for. And of course, above and beyond the official plan is the provincial policy statement, which directs land use in all of Ontario. So we need to ensure that the use that we are amending the zoning bylaw for is permitted in both documents. Beginning with the provincial policy statement, it states that residential development that is locally appropriate is permitted on rural lands. The subject property is considered rural lands because it's outside of a settlement area. In Ward 3, the only settlement area is the actual Colchester Center and Lakeshore West. In terms of development, it must be appropriate to the infrastructure which is available and avoid the need for the uneconomical and unjustified expansion of infrastructure. So going back to the slide on infrastructure, Breezeway Drive is an existing road. We are not plugging in any more roads. There is an existing water system. There's no need for an extension of the water supply. And of course, it's locally appropriate because all the other lots in the area are serviced by private on-site septic systems. In terms of the Town of Essex official plan, for the area east of the Colchester Center, so County Road 50 East, residential development is really restricted to minor infilling. The official plan, the zoning bylaw, doesn't actually include a definition for minor infilling. We assume it to mean in the planning world as lots that are appropriately designated, lots that are on a plan of subdivision that can be developed without any special planning approvals. So again, the official plan allows for minor infilling, and this would result in the creation of 4 lots. So in terms of determining what's minor, we are not, again, going back to the PPS, we are not needing any sort of unjustified or uneconomical expansion of our infrastructure or our roadway system. And the provisions for septic system is completely in line with the neighborhood. Additionally, the Town of Essex official plan also permits 1 single detached dwelling, which is exactly what the applicants want to develop the properties for in this designation. Next slide, please. So prior to this meeting, we have a list of people we must consult with as per regulation. And we've consulted with the County of Essex, the Essex Region Conservation Authority, and Essex Fire and Rescue Services, just to name a few. These were the individuals that provided us with comments. I always call them the Old Faithful. I know I'm going to get comments from them. Essex Fire and Rescue Services had no objections. County of Essex simply stated that there's going to be some county road setback regulations required because there is 1 lot that's going to front on County Road 50. No accesses will be permitted off County Road 50 for that lot. All accesses have to be off Breezeway Drive. And finally, the Essex Region Conservation Authority just noted that the applicants will be required, or anybody who purchases the lots will be required to obtain permits prior to any construction or site alteration for those lots that are affected by their area of regulation. The Essex Region Conservation Authority indicated that there will be no environmental impact assessment required. So remember that we talked about the presence of that woodland. They've evaluated using photos and site visits that there is no demonstration of negative impact needed for this application to proceed. And therefore they had no objection with the zoning bylaw amendment. Next slide, please. Also, per regulation in the Planning Act, we have to notify all property owners within a 120-meter radius of the site. So the map you see on the slide indicates all the property owners within that radius that we've notified, and we haven't received any public comments as of Friday, March 26. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, we've prepared a report to council with the proposed bylaw for the regular council meeting on April 6th. At the April 6th meeting, council may approve the application where there's, notice of approval will be sent to the applicant afterwards. and all persons who've requested to be notified, and that'll trigger a 20-day appeal period. Or council can choose to deny the application at the April 6th meeting. And again, that will also trigger a 20-day appeal period. Or they can choose to defer the decision to a later date if further information is required. Next slide, please. This slide just shows council and members of the public what that proposed bylaw passage will look like. So because we had that zoning amendment in 2014, we do have a passage in our zoning bylaw which speaks to those supplementary regulations for this property. So all the proposed bylaw will do is strike out reference to those lots that make up the subject lands. So reference to lots 40 to 52 on Plan 1390. So they would, if this is successful, they would no longer be affected by that 4,000 square meter provision, but all the other lots will, unless they apply for a subsequent zoning amendment. Next slide, please. And that's all I have to say on this first application. So I know the applicants are here with their agent, and you know, they'd be happy to answer any questions I can't answer from council or the public.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll open it up to the applicants first, and then I'll come back to council. So if the applicants are there, go ahead.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here as well. Ed Hooker speaking. Your worship, I don't really have much to add. That was a very well put together presentation from Rita. And I know that I've worked for a number of years with this particular charitable organization, and they've always been thankful to have council's support as they move forward in time. I'd let Mr. Inverarity, who has also worked with Kiwanis for a number of years, see if he has anything further to add, but I'm just here to help answer any questions I can.
And go ahead, Dan.
Just really good presentation, Rita. You obviously know what you're doing. So good.
Thank you.
Dan? Okay, thanks, Dan. I'm going to open it up now to council. I think Deputy Mayor Malash was first. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to Rita. So the street that these proposed lots would exit onto, I know we have different kinds of beach roads, some that are owned and not assumed, some that are owned and assumed, some that are just private beach roads. What category, first of all, does this road fall into?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, this road is owned by the town of Essex, but it's not assumed by the town of Essex. So as I mentioned in my presentation, yes, we own it, but in terms of the level of maintenance, it's simply a gravel road. So we keep just up with that standard because it's not built to our standards, but we own it. So we keep to the very minimum standard.
So I would probably ask the question though, then. My concern would be that once we have residents on this road, that we'd have an issue with the residents saying, you know what, you guys own the road, we want you to finish it off, and we want you to pave this road now and take it over and so on. What's going to be our answers? Because these are brand new houses being built on this road in time. That's a logical question for these residents to ask. Why weren't they made aware of this before they built these new beautiful homes down by the waterfront?
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Deputy Mayor Malash, are you referring to the zoning amendment, being made aware of the zoning amendment, or the possibility for—
No, being made of the fact that they're building a house on it, owned by the town, but unassumed. Maybe expecting that the road's going to be brought up to a different standard by the town.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know what the exact process is if, you know, a group of neighboring homeowners want to petition the town to upgrade the road. I know Director Gerard's here. I would defer to him for answer on that. But I don't have an answer as to the process.
Okay. My other question that I had was, so in I know what the square meters are of each of these lots. Can you break that down, the dimensions in feet? They all look to be relatively the same size.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Dan, do you have the exact dimensions?
I believe there's somewhere around 200 feet of frontage by 150 foot deep, approximately.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So
Chris, go ahead. You can, oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor, and
Chris,
then
Chris, if you
Chris
could
has
answer
got
that
something
question,
to add.
road, that would be great.
Through your worship, I don't know if I can answer your question, Deputy Mayor Meloche, but I can provide you some context around it. I guess through this zoning change and through the sale of the lots, it's no different than any homes that are on a private road now or own an assumed road now. You know, it's up to the purchaser and the builder or developer, or I guess the ultimate person buying it, to do their homework to understand what that means. Yeah, it's a great question, because you're right. We get even residents that buy into private roads right now, or currently own and assumed roads, that have those same questions. So I know Rita was struggling with the process. We went through that at our roundtable last Monday in terms of really what council is looking for that process, and it's going to be a high level, petition type process for those residents if they want to bring those roads back up. So I guess the answer is no resident is going to be notified through this process, or there's no requirement for anybody selling those lots to explicitly explain what it is and where they're moving and what the type of road is. So I know that doesn't help you in terms of an answer, but I guess I'm just giving you where I think we're at with it.
Yeah, I just think it's unfortunate the buyer beware system is in place. The only reason why I say that is because I know over the years of being on council, there have been a number of residents that have come to the town after they've built a home on a private road, or after they've built a home on an unassumed road, saying, well, why didn't the town let us know this? And our answer is that because we don't have to let you know. It just doesn't seem a responsible way to do it. And that's all.
No,
But-
Deputy Mayor, I think our answer is, if they ask, we tell them. But if nobody asks us, how do I even know they're buying a lot? That's the issue, right? I can't.
So the thing that a lot of these residents that came to us said, look, how would I know to ask that question? The town has approved these lots. I would have just assumed that they own the road if they've approved the lots. And that's the residents' arguments. So if there's nothing we can do, that's fine. I'm just trying to avoid potential future issues. That's all. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, it's excellent points. And I think it goes into even a broader, it's no different than somebody from the city moving out to a rural neighborhood and finding out they have a drainage bill. If they don't do their homework, there's municipal drainage bills, tied to these homes as well. So I know on our website, I have to check on the public GeoCortex website to see if it designates owned, not assumed, and private roads. But maybe that's something, if it doesn't, we can add it to the public mapping site. So if somebody does go to the mapping site to look at their lot, they'll be able to at least see that part of it: owned, not assumed, private, and the 3 listings. So maybe that's a broader information that we can provide.
Okay. Thank you. That would probably be helpful.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that question. Councillor Guerin, you're next.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so just to comment on Deputy Mayor Meloche's question. Once these lots are approved and I buy one of these lots, my builder has to go to, I have to go to the town, ask for a permit. I got to get approvals on it. They're going to let me know at that time I need a septic system, for example. Would we not make them aware at that point in time that the road they're moving on is such? Wouldn't that be the appropriate time to let them know? We're going to let them know all the other things that they got to abide by. That's just a comment I'm throwing out there.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Chris.
Councillor Guerin, I mean, we can look at that part of it, but typically it's a developer or a builder that's getting the permits pulled anyways. And the communication between the developer and the builder and the owner, you know, we've seen it all too often with whether they're pool permits or fence permits. It doesn't always take place. So different audience, maybe, I think, at that time.
Councillor Verbeek, you were next.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Mr. Inadverti. I wanted to just ask about the, like the intention of the camp. Are you guys just, will you be just selling the lots, or are you already working with the developer that may build the homes and sell them? I mean, I don't know the best way for the camp to get their biggest bang for their buck, and this is just a question out of curiosity. What the camp's plan is, just to sell the lots after this, or to build and sell? Dan, you're muted.
Okay, very good question, Kim. So what we're trying to do, or what I'm trying to do for the camp is, some of you may be aware, I've reacquired the waterfront property that was donated to the camp in 1952. And due to financial situations 7 years ago, we had to sell it prior to me running the organization because they ran out of money. I've done a lot of fundraising. We're in financially very good shape. I had a lot of large donations come in order to acquire that land back from BK Cornerstone. So the land on the water is now back in the hands of the children. The lots to the east, we don't really need to use them that much anymore. I have no intentions of selling them at this point in time. There is not going to be a for sale sign go up. I've already been approached by people to buy it, and I've said no. What I'm trying to do is, at some point in time, I may be out of the organization. It's a lifetime commitment to me to run the place, but I may get sick, I may die, who knows? So I'm trying to set them up so that if they can't find someone to replace me to fundraise, they've got what I call a backstop of equity in land that if needed, they could sell sometime down the road. So I'm just trying to prepare the camp for the worst case scenario. Now that we've got these new septic systems that you can do, you know, a smaller parcel of land, I'm just doing a backstop for the kids for the future if I disappear. So.
Who was next? Councillor Bowman, I think you were next. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to ask a question that's going back to some of the earlier things about the road allowance. Where does the drainage go from that? Does it go out to County Road 50? And if so, who's responsible for that drainage? Does that come back to municipality, or is that from the developer?
We have private drainage on the land and it goes into the creek. So it goes out to County Road 50 and then flows over to the creek.
Okay. But that would go down the street allowance in front of these homes, would it not?
No, it heads to the west towards the creek. So.
Yeah, Councillor Bowman, they're directly right beside the creek.
Okay.
Yeah, the camp butts right up against the creek.
Okay, I was just wondering about easements and that type of thing for whether it's a street drain or you know, a community drain. Anyway, if that's been looked after, that's looked after. Great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Dolen, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thanks for the great presentation, Mr. Brewer. That was terrific. Was very informative and enthusiastic. And I was really enthusiastic about this too until Mr. Inverarity just said that he doesn't intend to sell the lots. That's kind of too bad. I was looking forward to this development because I think this would be ideal for the neighborhood, the location, the street. And I walked that street on foot a couple of times, and that the other side of the breezeway, there are some very nice homes, and this is an ideal place for more upper level homes. Of course, we need the housing, that goes without saying. This would not be entry level by any means. This would be higher end, but we need that too, because it all trickles down. And this would really, I'm sure this would improve the property values of the entire neighborhood. So, you know, I hope Kiwanis sells the lot sooner rather than later. We don't want to wait another 91 years. But it was a good point from the deputy mayor about the road allowance. And maybe I hope we pass this tonight. I hope it's a slam dunk. Maybe we should just like add a line to it that you know, with the understanding that the future owners of these lots, along with the current residents of the street or future residents of the street, are wholly responsible for the upgrading of the street to municipal standards, so that it is carved in stone, so that in future, as Deputy Mayor says, they don't come back and say, well, how come our street isn't paved? And we can't very well require this of the Kiwanis Club at this point because there are no buyers present. But if we just sort of made this an addendum to our passage of the rezoning, so that we can point to that in the years or decades to come, that no, it's up to you guys. We approve this, but you're getting a good price because it's not an up to standard road. Is that possible? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Vanderdolen. It's something I can think about. It's not usually notices can be posted, anything with regards to you know, specific items affecting the land and the road. They're usually registered on title, so perhaps it's something I can speak to with our solicitor in terms of resolving this this issue. So perhaps it's simply a notice, other than in the passage, that they can register on the lots themselves.
Well, thank you, Rita.
Turned on his camera, so he might have something to add.
Go ahead, Ed.
I knew as soon as I put that piece of gum in my mouth that I needed to speak. But yes, just through you, Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest the same thing. Given the consensus on the feedback, and certainly Mr. Inverarity and I wouldn't want any buyer to have a misunderstanding. I thought that in future agreements of purchase and sale, it'd be good to remember to put that in. But given that could be some time down the road, perhaps we would just enter into an agreement with the municipality, acknowledging that the road is owned by the municipality, but currently maintained to the gravel standard it is, and not a formally assumed road, and that any costs of upgrading the road would be the responsibilities of the lot owners. Again, I'm speaking maybe without having the benefit of talking to Dan about that directly, but perhaps Dan can provide his insight as a realtor marketing these lots, whether that would be anything that would pose a huge issue. I think it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything being mentioned on title and something like that before. I don't really actually quite understand it, why anybody would want to do it. It is what it is. When they buy it, they buy it. It's a gravel road. They know what they're buying. And why would someone come back later to the town and say, you need to pave this? Well, they can't really do that. So I think it's a moot point as far as putting anything on title for that. So, but it's up to the councilors. So I've just never heard anything like that before.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Ed. To Dan, I agree with Councillor Vandendolen. It sure would be nice to see the homes go up right away, and you know what the prices are doing. You're in that market.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're going to make money while the market's hot, it'd be nice to see new homes go. That's my point, and that's my view, and I kind of agree with Councillor Vandendolen. We need housing, and I don't have to tell you that, Dan.
I know that. I got something else I'll be proposing in probably next 3 months that me and Ed are working on now for some more homes and on another place. So there'll be lots more coming.
Great. Thanks, Dan. And to Rita, thank you very much for the presentation. It was good. And thank you, Council, for your input. At this point here, I'll probably need a motion to accept the presentation. Councillor Guerin and Councillor Vandendolen. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And once again, thanks, Dan, and thanks, Ed.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 4.2 on this evening's agenda is another application, site-specific zoning amendment at 3900 North Malden Road, applicant being Lauren McKim. And once again, Mr. Mayor, I believe we're turning it over to our Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabor.
Rita, if you're ready, go ahead.
Your worship, I'm just going to pass it over to Shelley to throw up the presentation. Okay, there we go. So 2 out of 3. This next application concerns the property at 3900. That should be North Malden Road. So sorry for the typo. 3900 North Malden Road. Next slide, please. And again, the purpose of this meeting is to hear the merits of the application, to hear from council, and to hear from the applicant and members of the public on the application itself. We don't make a decision tonight. Next slide, please. So the first slide here just shows where the subject site is. So again, it's denoted by a red star, and you'll see that it's located in Ward 2 in the town of Essex. The site itself is 48 hectares, which is 119 acres of agricultural land. And again, it's located on the north side of North Malden Road. Its official plan designation is agricultural, and the zoning is Agricultural District 1.1, which is your general agricultural zoning designation, which permits farm production support activities and general agricultural uses. Next slide, please. The next slide here contains a bit of a development profile for the subject site, so more of a bird's eye view. The subject property is denoted in blue, and it contains 1 single detached dwelling, 2 pole barns, 1 tobacco barn, 1 grain bin building used for storage. The property itself is mainly used for cash cropping purposes, but the applicants also raise beef cattle, chickens, and horses. Next slide, please. So again, here's a neighborhood profile. So the subject property is highlighted in yellow, and it's also identifiable by a red star. You'll note that the surrounding properties without any color, those are all agriculturally zoned properties, agriculturally designated and zoned properties. So this property, even though it's about 1.3 kilometers west of the Essex Center, is primarily in an agricultural district. It's also close, of course, to municipal facilities, those denoted in green, as well as industrial lands and a collection of land uses really that are located within the Essex Center. Next slide, please. So a bit of a snapshot in terms of infrastructure. The property fronts on North Malden Road, which is a road that is owned and assumed by the town of Essex. Woohoo! It has municipally owned and operated piped water supply as depicted in blue. And like the Kiwanis Camp property, it doesn't have any provisions for septic system, or sorry, for municipally owned sanitary sewers. So the applicants, in terms of having a residence on the property, they would need to service that with an on-site private septic system. Next slide, please. In terms of the zoning change, so why we're here tonight is because the applicants wish to permit the use of the existing single detached dwelling as accommodations to house farm help. So a little bit of history, and I'm sure the applicants will provide some more context as to the current use of the property. The applicant's father, the property recently changed hands from the father to the son. The applicant's father is currently residing in the existing single detached dwelling, and the applicant wishes to construct his future home here, but he doesn't wish to demolish the existing single detached dwelling because it's a home with good bones. It's a good habitable home, and it also houses his father, who is completely integral to the farming operation. So the applicant would like to retain the single detached dwelling in order to accommodate the housing of his father, who is farm help. In terms of definitions, we'll get to that in just a bit, but I'd like to flip over to the next slide. So in terms of regulations, why are we here? Well, the Town of Essex zoning bylaw only allows one single detached dwelling on a lot that's located in the A11 zoning district. And as you'll recall, there already is one single detached dwelling. In terms of housing farm help, the Town of Essex official plan does allow for one or more ancillary dwellings for the purpose of housing farm help by way of a zoning bylaw amendment and a site plan control application when the following two tests are met. So the first test being that the farm operation is of such a size and nature that this assistant is required and that residential accommodation needs to be located on or close by the farm. So as I noted earlier, the applicant's father currently resides in the dwelling and is integral to the farming operation. Not only does the applicant own this parcel of land, but the applicant also owns an additional parcel of agricultural land just down the road for a total of 300 acres. Anybody who has livestock knows that livestock needs daily attention. So the applicant does need help with the maintenance of the farm, especially with respects to livestock, because there's also cash cropping operations that occur on this property and on an adjacent property. And finally, the second test being that the ancillary dwellings are located on the lot and accessed in such a way to prevent the creation of a severable residential lot in the future. So any dwelling that's deemed necessary for farm help is really an accessory structure. It's no different than a pole barn. It's necessary, and we're going to flip back to the definitions in just a bit. It's necessary to support the main use of the property, which is agricultural. So in terms of severing, the provincial policy statement is very, very specific about severances in agricultural areas and does not permit severances of vacant residential lots, but permits severances of habitable homes that are deemed surplus to the farming operation. So these are homes in which the farmer or a person resides in. They have no connection. The house isn't really used to house farm help. It's there as a single detached dwelling. So in those cases, the province stipulates that you can sever that lot as a surplus dwelling lot. But because housing for farm help is not a standard single detached dwelling, it's ancillary to that main use, that is not a house that you can sever off. So we're just going to flip back to the previous slide that included those definitions. So you'll see that these definitions relate back to that ancillary dwelling, being that dwelling for farm help. An ancillary use, and this is from our zoning bylaw, is defined as a use which complements or otherwise provides a service to the main use of the zoning district in which it is located. So in this case, the dwelling itself accommodates, provides a service to that agricultural use because it houses the farm help. The second definition is with respects to a dwelling. A dwelling is defined as a building or structure, such as a single detached dwelling, that is occupied in whole or in part for the purpose of human habitation. Next slide, please. So if you just want to go just back to that slide there with the current regulations. Perfect, thanks, Shelley. So going back to the current regulations, the Town of Essex official plan, again, stipulates what those tests are and determining whether a dwelling for farm help can be accommodated by way of a zoning bylaw amendment. But the provincial policy statement, again, goes one over and states that full-time farm labor and the accommodations for full-time farm labor is an agricultural use. So this is a use that's permitted under the PPS, that our own Town of Essex official plan permits, but by way of, getting approval such as a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control approval. And again, with reference to the McKim farms, we're just going to flip over to the next slide. So as I stated earlier, the subject lands, they only form one part of the farming operation for McKim farms. 300 acres currently used for agricultural crop cultivation and raising beef cattle Certainly the size of the farming operation warrants the need for additional farm help. So in total, the applicants own 85.58 hectares of agricultural land in the municipality. Next slide, please. Here is the site plan of the site itself with the existing dwelling located closer to North Malden Road. So it's the smaller building footprint off to the left. In the left site plan, you can see it a little bit better. That is the existing dwelling and the dwelling in which they are looking to convert for the housing of farm labor. The larger dwelling located to the right is the dwelling that the applicants are proposing to construct for their own purposes. Again, consolidating their properties and wanting to live on their farm. So you'll see the way the dwellings are configured. You'll see that they're both going to use the same access, being the existing access off North Malden Road. The applicants will also need to use the same piped water supply. So all the plumbing will have to come from the existing dwelling. All these types of measures, including the zoning amendment, including that passage, will help alert us if there ever is, even though the applicants have no intention, if there ever is in the future a proposal for a severance, that this dwelling, the smaller dwelling, is a dwelling for farm labor and cannot be severed. Next slide, please. So the existing dwelling itself is about 88 square meters, and you can see it there in the middle photograph. That is the existing dwelling. To the left, you'll see the access area that the existing dwelling and the proposed dwelling are going to use. You'll see red barns. Those are all used for the farming operation. And then off to the right, you'll see the general area where the new house is being proposed. But I don't want to concentrate too much on that. It's really, this zoning is really about converting the use of the existing dwelling to farm labor accommodation. Next slide, please. So again, if we go back to agency comments, we circulated Essex Fire and Rescue Services and heard back from them with no objections. We also received comments from the Essex Region Conservation Authority, standard no objections, just alerting us that permits would be required in any area that they regulate. We heard back from our building division who had no objections, but noted that proof of existing farm labor accommodation may be required at the ministry level. Now, I did get clarification that this was really with respects to migrant farm workers. So accommodations for migrant workers as opposed to just farm laborers. Heard back from the Department of Infrastructure Services and they had no objections. And they simply stated that the existing and main dwelling will need to be supplied with water from the existing plumbing on site and that no additional water meter will be provided. Next slide, please. In terms of public comments, you'll see our notification area, the 120 meter radius highlighted in yellow. We didn't receive any comments as of Friday, March 26th. Next slide, please. So in terms of next step, we'll prepare a report for council's decision on April 6th. At that meeting, council may choose to approve the application and a 20-day appeal period will take effect. They may choose to deny and the same 20-day appeal period will take effect, or they may choose to defer until we get more information, anything that comes about during this meeting. So after that, the applicant will need to proceed to site plan control approval. The applicant has already provided us with a site plan and we've circulated it already to agencies. And I think they were just waiting to hear the results of this public meeting to decide on how they want to proceed with that. But that'll definitely be a part of the approval process. And they won't be able to get a building permit until the zoning is in place, as well as site plan control approval is in place as well. Next slide, please. So here's the proposed bylaw passages. So again, we identify the subject lands, 3900 North Malden Road, and we simply add as a supplementary use, the use of the existing dwelling to accommodate the housing of farm help shall be permitted. And we also indicate that it needs to be in accordance with the site plan adopted by that specific bylaw. So we know that because the site plan shows that the existing dwelling is in a certain location, that that will remain in that location. Therefore, further, calming us that there will be no severance in the future. Next slide, please. So that's all I have to add on this application. I know the applicants are here and I'm here for questions.
Rita, once again for the presentation. I guess I'll open it up to council for any questions. Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Thank you, through your worship. Really no questions, but a really well thought out plan. I believe that this is a very logical solution to, at the same time, keeping an older structure that should not be eliminated at this point in time. And, the McKims have had an operation for years and years on that location. And it's the plight of a lot of farmers that I've heard is that they'd love to have some accommodation for farm help. If they've got a house to offer farm help, it's one way of keeping the cost down as far as wages go too. So this would perhaps help in that manner as well. So really well thought out, Rita. Thanks for presenting this. I'm all in favor of this.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Verbeek, you were next.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. And yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it's a great plan. And thanks, Rita. That was a really helpful presentation. And did I hear you say it's a family member, it's a father that's going to be remaining and helping? That's wonderful. That's great. You're lucky. I will be supporting this.
Thank you.
You, Councillor Van Dolen, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yes, I agree with our councillors from Ward 2. This sounds great. I don't have any problems with it. I fully support it. I just really delighted that some of our farmers want to reinvest in their own homes to stay on the land, because so many times farmers want better housing and they can't build it because of restrictive rules. They have to move into town or one of the community centers. So I'm glad the McKim family can do this, and I hope to continue farming there for a long time to come. Thank you.
I'm in support of this too. This is good. We have Jennifer and Lauren here. Did you have anything to add at all? Did you want to add anything? No, you're fine. Yeah, you're going to get support from council. You can see that all. So anybody else from council? Okay, once again, thank you, Jennifer and Lauren, for bringing this forward. We appreciate it. And at this point here, I think I'm going to need a motion to accept the presentation, and that's Councillor Bowman and Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Once again, Jennifer and Lauren, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our last application this thing is a site-specific zoning amendment for the vacant lands on the north side of South Talbot Road, Salvatore Mazzelli. And once again, I turn it over to our Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabor.
Go ahead, Rita.
Sorry, I was on mute. I got too excited there. So last but not least, I'm going to have Shelley pop up the final presentation. Okay, so our next presentation concerns vacant lands on the north side of South Talbot Road. Got it right this time. Next slide, please. Again, purpose of this meeting, let's hear the application, let's hear the applicants, hear from the public, hear from council, get some feedback to come back with a report, hopefully on April 6th. Next slide, please. So the subject lands are denoted with a red star. They're approximately 2 hectares, which is exactly 5 acres of vacant industrial land on the north side of South Talbot Road, which is located just parallel east of Kings Highway number 3, and within the Essex Center settlement area. It's very important to emphasize that it's within the settlement area, because within a settlement area, there's a variety of land uses that can be approved. The official plan designation is industrial, and the existing zoning of the lands is manufacturing district 1.1, which allows light industrial and business park uses. Next slide, please. Here's the aerial view of the property. You'll see it's outlined in blue. Again, vacant land located within the Essex Center settlement area. The property itself, it has access off of South Talbot Road. And the property also currently includes a portion of the rush drain, which council, but some of the public may not know, will be relocated in the future as a result of, well, we need it for a couple reasons, because there's residential development happening to the north, but also because there's the reconstruction of South Talbot Road in the works as well. So next slide, please. Again, the neighborhood profile. So you'll see a bunch of different colors here. To the north in yellow is future residential lands. And we just heard from our Director of Development Services on Friday that phase 1 is in the works for Essex Town Center. So this property is located just south of the Essex Town Center subdivision. To the east and west is also industrial lands with Highway 3 frontage, and also in red, you'll see highway commercial lands neighboring this property as well with County Road A frontage. So a collection of land uses here. To the south, on the other side of Highway 3 is also industrial lands, but they have a bit of a higher density in terms of uses. So more of a heavy industrial use is permitted on those lands, as opposed to a light industrial use here. Next slide, please. In terms of infrastructure, so again, the subject lands, because it was recently subject to a consent severance application, if you were to hop on our GIS map, if you're a member of the public or a member of administration, you're not going to see it as a separate parcel just yet. That usually takes some time until you know, the information from the land registry office to MPAC is provided, and it's its own separate assessed parcel. But for the purpose of this application and this meeting, I just have it outlined with a red star. So you'll note again that the municipal road is South Talbot Road North, which is a municipally owned and assumed road, but there is currently Ministry of Transportation is working on the reconstruction work associated with the Highway 3 expansion, which will affect South Talbot Road. The property has access to a municipally owned and operated water supply along South Talbot Road, and that's depicted in blue on the slide. The property also has access to a municipally owned and operated sanitary sewer, which is depicted in red on this slide, and is accessed through easements at the rear of this property. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning change, the applicants are here tonight because they wish to add a supplementary use to this property to allow a motor vehicle dealership. A motor vehicle dealership is not permitted as of right in the M13 zoning category. Therefore, we need the zoning change to permit the development of a motor vehicle dealership for the sale and display of recreational vehicles, so RVs primarily, and the development of one building for a sales office, parts store, and repair garage. The second point there, the sales office and repair garage, those are all included under the definition of a motor vehicle dealership, but just thought I'd flesh that out. The applicants, as you'll soon discover, are actually the proprietors of Sturgeon Woods RV Sales and Campground in Leamington. So it's very fitting that they have chosen this site for another RV dealership. Next slide, please. So I apologize in advance. I know this isn't the clearest site plan, but this is the site plan we currently have on file, which will depict the overall layout for this development. So off to the left, and they've included the rush drain in their site plan, So it's nice for this reference, for our reference today, because I can say where the RV dealership's going to be. But I've also included a red star, which denotes the self-storage facility that's also being proposed. Now, it's very important to know that the self-storage facility is not the subject of the zoning amendment because it's actually permitted under the M13 zoning district. What is subject is that motor vehicle dealership, which is not. So I know the applicant wants to construct this in phases, with the actual sales lot being first and then the buildings. But you'll see the building off to the far left, as well as the parking area, which will hold the RVs. Next slide, please. So again, in terms of policy framework, we need to look at the provincial policy statement as well as the Town of Essex official plan. The Town of Essex official plan permits a motor vehicle dealership in on lands designated industrial. So no problem, no offense, no amendments needed to the official plan. With respect to the provincial policy statement, now going back to my earlier statement about this being a settlement area, these lands specifically are designated employment lands. So on these lands and settlement areas, the PPS states that we shall, this isn't a should, this is a shall, promote economic development and competitiveness by providing for an appropriate mix and range of employment, institutional, and broader mixed uses to meet long-term needs. We also must provide opportunities for a diversified economic base, which includes maintaining a range and choice of suitable sites for employment uses which support a wide range of economic activities and ancillary uses and take into account the needs of existing and future businesses. Next slide, please. We've circulated this application to the regulated agencies and public bodies. Again, received no objections from Essex Fire and Rescue Services. The Essex Region Conservation Authority also had no objections. It's important to note here that this development, being a new development, will also be subject to site plan control. So IRCA just mentioned that they will provide comments on the stormwater management plan, which is a necessary component of site plan control. Importantly, too, we've notified the Ministry of Transportation, and they had no objections with the change in land use either. They just made mention that site access for this site is off of South Talbot Road. If you had a chance to pick up on it, there were 3 access areas depicted on the site plan, and the MTO had no issue with that either. They state that building and land use permits will be required. They'll require a site plan, a grading plan, drainage plan, servicing plan, and stormwater management plan, all part of the site plan control process, all normal required studies that are expected. And they will have more comments on the actual development at that time, at that site plan control stage. But as for now, in terms of implementing the use, no objections from the Ministry of Transportation or any other agencies for that matter. Next slide, please. Public comments. So the yellow highlighted properties are all properties within 120 meters of the subject site. And again, we've received no public comments as of Friday, March 26. Next slide, please. Finally, in terms of next steps, as you know, April 6th is going to be a busy night. If all goes well, we will present a report on this zoning change for April 6th, and council can approve, deny, all subject to that 20-day appeal period, or defer until further information is required. Following the implementation of the zoning change and the successful passing of the 20-day appeal period, the applicant will proceed to the site plan control stage. And I understand that the applicant, working with his engineer, are preparing those necessary studies so they can get their approvals as soon as possible. Next slide, please. So finally, here is the proposed bylaw passage. So we just note the legal description of the property so we know what this passage specifically applies to, and simply noting that a motor vehicle dealership, which includes that sales lot, that sales building, and that repair garage, is an additional permitted use on this property. So the property itself will still be able to be developed for any of the uses that are permitted under the M13, such as a storage facility, but with the addition of this additional use, a motor vehicle dealership. And that's all I have to add. I know the applicants are here to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Rita. Just the council, more good news for the town of Essex, believe. So I'm going to open it up to council first. Councillor Guerin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a great presentation again. I had a couple questions. I'm a little bit confused on the zoning part of it, so I apologize. But so it's zoned right now 1-3, which is manufacturing district, light industrial, and business park. In our official plan, it says that permitted use in our official plan for a motor vehicle development is industrial. It's just a play on words there? I'm trying to understand why it's not permitted right now. It says zoning manufacturing district 1.3 light industrial and business park, and it's zoned right now industrial.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'd be more than happy to answer that. So similar to agricultural designations or residential designations, there are different categories of industrial. So because of where this is located, it's located closer to a significant residential development. It's not the heavy type of industrial because of the hazards that it might impose on the neighboring residential uses, which are considered sensitive land uses. So they've been placed in a light industrial zoning category as opposed to a heavy industrial category. So in the official plan, the lands are designated industrial, just like the heavy industrial lands on the other side of the road. But the zoning bylaw goes one step further and further divides those categories based on where they are.
Okay, and then further to that, so the stipulation that we're adding in this then that I'm reading is a development of motor vehicle dealership for the sale and display of only, I'm assuming, recreational vehicles such as RVs. So does that mean that zoning, if Sturgeon Woods up the road were to sell that to another proprietor, they would have to sell only the same use for that property? Or could that person then sell cars out of there or pickup trucks out of there?
So a motor vehicle dealership is actually pretty broadly defined. It's not specific just to an RV, like just to the sale of RVs. It can include automobiles as well.
Okay, so then once we do approve this, the proponent or any proponent thereafter could sell whatever motorized vehicle they wish on that property.
That's correct. So long as it aligns with the definition of a motor vehicle dealership, council can go one step further and make it more specific to the sale of RVs.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Van Endolen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yes, Mr. Brewer, another interesting presentation with a lot of great detail, which should be of use to residents and viewers watching this. The reason we're here is because this piece of property is part of the settlement area, which is supposedly it's a limited and rare usage, and so we have to approve it before we give up settlement area for the use of something else. But the fact is that we have plenty of settlement area, just not enough people building on them. What we lack is industrial, commercial, retail. So I really welcome this development and this rezoning. In addition to the importance of settlement area, there's the importance of the highest and best use of a piece of property, and where this piece of land is situated. I was saying to one of the other councilors earlier today, it's almost beyond my comprehension that some retailer didn't jump on this 10 years ago and grab it. They've got 30,000 commuters going past it twice a day. I mean, this is ideal for a retail sales location. And I'd be happy to see this site used to sell any kind of vehicle for as long as they want, because it's right next to a highway. That's perfect. My only question is, when will that rush drain be moved? And what's the short-term use for that strip of land when the rush drain is moved elsewhere? Thank you.
So through the chair to Councillor Vanderdolen, as you know, the tender has gone out for the rush drain. Timeline specifically, I think I would defer to Ms. Chadwick or Mr. Gerard. I don't know if Lori, you can provide a timeline, or Kevin?
Thank you, Rita. I think Kevin can answer that. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We are actually just surpassed the appeal window for the rush drain. So you can expect in the coming council meetings to see the provisional bylaw come to council for final reading of the rush drain, to which it will be tendered shortly after. We have been in contact with the developer's engineer, and we've discussed what the final outcome of that rush drain through that property will be. Once the new drain's constructed, this one will become a private drain, and they will be allowed to manipulate it however they see fit. So we are working with the engineer on that as we work through the site plan, but we don't know what the actual outcome of that short segment will be through that property.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gerard.
Kevin, anybody else from council? Okay, at this point here, I'm going to need a motion to accept the presentation, please. Councillor Guerin and Councillor Bowman, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. I think this will be a plus for our town. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Is there, before we adjourn, is there any questions from council here tonight or anything they want to bring up? Seeing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, hang on with just one little thing.
Go ahead. Yeah. We'll have to come back to him. He's froze up. Oh, there you are. You're froze up. Go ahead.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up. As some people know, I've got this new Starlink internet service, and it's fabulous. I recommend it, but it freezes up sometimes because it's still in beta mode, and it froze up about 3 times tonight from 5 seconds to 40 seconds. So I missed a couple little pieces. So if I asked a dumb question, I ask forgiveness. But I sure am happier with the service than the previous service I had. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Point here, I'll need a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Malage and Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? Carried. Have a great evening.